Okay, so this is my level for Thea the Awakening, and this is the start of my first quest at the beginning of the game. So what happens, I have all of my quests monikered with a hashtag just so that it's easy to distinguish between. And this one basically is the intro quest into the series. This was a test to make sure that everything worked so far. So as we can see from here, this quest basically says you find a witch and she's either threatening you or she wants you to give her something in return to be able to do stuff. In this case, we're going to try to calm her down. This uses one of the challenges. In this case, it's an intellect challenge. And we're going to begin the combat just to show what these are like. So it's a card-based system, so everything that has to be balanced around this from a 1 to 10 rating, because the quests are based in a ranking of 1 to 5 for the skull challenging, and these have different health and everything depending on what's going on in the initial game. So we're just going to try to get through this as quickly as possible so I can show off what's going on with the rest of the functionality we have. In this case, this first quest is fairly easy and allows us to beat it in a number of different ways. We even have an option for if you have the correct items at the beginning of the game. And then there's a few other things that happen throughout. As we see, combat plays out as it usually does. So far I only have 2 of the quests implemented, and this was testing to make sure everything actually worked correctly. Because that was one of my biggest concerns, was not being able to have everything implemented right. There's still a few bugs with it because this is a slightly off system, but so far it should work fairly well for what it is. Now that we've won this, it says we get a little bit more story into this, and she's talking about bandits in a ruin, and we find out that maybe we should figure out what's going on with that. And we get some items in return. Now there's actually ways in this quest where we can set it up so that we can actually potentially recruit her, but we didn't get it that time around because it is randomly generated on what we get and when. And in this case, I'm just going to send out a few more guys with my main party so that they can meet up and we can go fight these guys. We're just going to join everyone up here, and then we're going to send this up off over to our spawned location. This is the second part of the quest. This spawns after you finish the first part in any of the ways. You can completely fail it, and this will still spawn to make sure that you get to go where you need to go for it. And as we soldier on, we'll get to see here what is actually happening. These skull ratings, as I said, this is the enemy difficulty. That represents how dangerous the fight can be. That's something you need to keep in mind when you're fighting these, and making sure that you keep everything above basically the average, because this is a roguelike game. So parts can be exceedingly hard if you don't do things right. Now in this, we come to the outskirts of the ruins where the bandits have set up camp, and we get a few different things that we could do. We could either try a hunting challenge to sneak in and try to soften them up with some traps. We can do a stealth to try to get behind them and also soften them up, or we could just rush in and attack them all out. I'm going to say we try a hunting challenge, and we're just going to auto-resolve this. Alright, so we lost the challenge, we didn't even get to meet them, and that's the end of that. This one just kind of mops it up at the beginning, so that's where it is at that point. But if I go out, and I go to the main menu, and we go to the event editor to look at some of the stuff that I've done here, so far we have our main starting quest here, which we have our 3 different options. Each one goes into our different challenge phases, and then we have our basically story that happens, which spits into, hey, something's going on, we should check on it, and then it spawns on the map our bandit camp for the next quest, and then it spits out whatever our rewards are at the end. Then if we look over at the bandit camp, this one is set up through a few options as well, and this basically says, hey, you're gonna, once you get here and you investigate, you get these 3 options, and these 3 options dictate which challenge you get, which then goes into your adventuring phase of what you have to deal with in the encounter, and then you have your failed or you succeeded options. In this one, there's a lot more failure options just because of the fact that we have a lot more actual not successful options, because this is less of a peaceful thing and more of a combat-based thing. So that is something. These not only give you XP and stuff, but they also give you items, armor, and resources for fighting the things, because not always when you do a fight does it give you resources based off whatever the group you're fighting is. So that's something I just wanted to make sure was implemented, so we can make sure if it's easy or not. We are still giving the player rewards based off what they end up doing. And this system works around a way of me saying, hey, you're going to load this system and check for certain things. So this one wants quest tags. And what can happen is later down the line, once I get to the end quests, these tags are going to be super important, because these actually end up choosing what branch of the quests we're going to end up going down. So we could either go down the A or B type quests, and this depends on what tags we're going to end up getting later on, so that we can continue along that specific quest line, which then offers different things and has different difficulties depending on what happens from your choices that you make at 3 to 4 key specific areas, along with a few fill quests to enhance the story and let the player know a little bit more of what's going on, give them more of an educated viewpoint on it if they want it. But then again, this game also focuses around if you just want to fight everything and not listen to anyone at all and do only what's good for your faction, there are ways to do that too. It's mostly balance, and there's a lot of stuff to that. If we look over at our spreadsheet of all the different tags and enemy groups, there's actually quite a lot of different things that go into each thing, and how much stats and everything stuff has. So there's a lot of systems design behind this, because certain things are allowed certain equipment, and certain things are allowed special skills that only certain stuff can get. So that's where stuff starts getting interesting and a little bit harder to deal with, because of all this extra stuff that you can end up getting. So you want the player to ease into the difficulty. Since this is a roguelike, it's supposed to be harder the first couple times you do it with a base class than it is as you slowly go through the game. You'll start getting more benefits from your god as they level up from doing these quests over and over again, so you end up getting more of a sense of what you need to do, where you need to go, what you need to manage, what you don't need to manage, and so on and so forth. So that is my level as it is. A lot more is going to be implemented soon. I just want to make sure I got a play test in. I've tested this 3 times now. All of them work except for if we go back in and we look at a specific area. The one thing I need to change is when we use this, it does not take the herbs from the village. I have to make sure that it actually ends up doing that. And also I have an option that always shows up even though it shouldn't. So that is something that I need to make sure ends up happening, and that the resolution of them ends up not conflicting, because I had some problems with that because I didn't put the right increments on the nodes. And that is my level so far, and there's going to be much more to come.